Hey there. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining in. Appreciate you taking the time out of your busy days and schedules to be here with us. Hey, my name's Joshua. Well, I haven't said this before this way. I'm the founder and CEO of the WebiNerd LLC. I used to always say I'm a member of the something something at this company every time I started a webinar, and I kind of almost did it automatically. So welcome everybody. Thanks for joining in. Um, Hope to have some fun answering your questions here today. We've got some members of the team. We've got Ryan Green. Ryan Green, say hello.
Hi, happy to
And
be here.
we've got Shircy Benson. Hey,
Hi,
Shircy.
everyone. Good to see you.
And Brian, he's being secretive with his video off, I guess. Brian's a panelist too. There he is. We've got some
Hello.
other members of the team out there. Krista, I see you. We can bring you on later as well. Really just want to bring more information to people like you out there that want to learn about virtual events, whether it's your meetings, your webinars, those key things that we just want to share with you all the time. So we hope this is a great avenue to do it. We'll try to keep you up to date on what we're paying attention to and what we think you should be paying attention to. So join us here every last Friday of the month. So I brought all of the WebiNerd swag I could find. I don't know. This one's kind of an exclusive. I didn't share that one with you guys yet. That one I got for myself like on day one. But I've got my hat. I've got my sweatshirt on. It says you're muted. And go ahead and raise your hand out there if you want more WebiNerd swag. Any clients out there? Would you buy this? Would you get this stuff? Would we just have to send it to you? Would you wear it? Raise your hand if you want. Eric, I don't know, Eric, you're on the team, man. Cool. What's hot today? Ryan, what do we want to talk about?
Well, today we have a few things on the agenda. I thought we could get started with some basics. Could you give a little refresher, and we could all chime in, just giving a breakdown between a webinar and a meeting? Like, what are the differences between a Zoom webinar and a Zoom meeting? Because I think that'll lay the groundwork for more advanced learning.
Yeah, it's always a good place to start. And all these years later, I still find myself answering this question all the time. What's the difference? Which one should I be using is more the question now that we're answering. So I like to break it down simply like this. A meeting is a classroom or a conference room. Everybody can see each other. Everybody can, so turn on their webcams. They can talk, they can chat, they can screen share. Everybody has that permission. The host has some control to limit that access. So, prevent people from unmuting, turn off their videos, stop their screen share and prevent that. So that's a meeting. Classroom, conference room, kind of a level playing field. And then your webinar, that's more like your lecture hall, auditorium type of space. Imagine that you've got one or a few people, a panel. So you'll hear the term panelist in webinars all the time. So your panel, those are people that can speak and they can share their screen, share their webcam. So think of that webinar platform more like the lecture hall or auditorium. The audience doesn't really interact with one another. Today, you're welcome to type into the Q&A panel. We encourage it. Ask your questions, please. Oh, look at that attendee list growing still. It's fun. So yeah, ask us your questions through Q&A. The attendees in a webinar do have some ability to interact. I can let you raise your hand and unmute your line if I want to take verbal questions, but it's not really a highly interactive platform like a meeting is. So hopefully that's kind of the framework of your meeting versus webinar and what you can do. Oh, look, Adrian's coming on with us. You're going to learn who has schedule privilege on our Zoom account with me because they're just going to come right in. Go ahead, Adrian. You can switch on your webcam. Smile. Adrian has winningest smile on the team. So thank you, Adrian. So meeting versus webinar, when are we going to, oh, there's a link in the chat. Check the chat so that you can follow that link and we've got blog posts and information there. When am I going to use one or the other though? Let's talk about kind of some, I don't know, anybody have any fun use cases recently where it's like, which one do we pick for this client?
It comes up a lot with clients who are making the switch from like an in-person conference or trade show and needing and wanting to bring it virtually, and they kind of want the best of both worlds, and then we have to narrow it down to what is really critical, because they want complete control over what people are seeing and don't want people talking, but then they want them to go into breakout rooms. They want, and so we have to kind of filter it down to what is really necessary. I don't know if we want to get to doing the combo, which is a whole other thing.
Yeah, and there are cases where, well, why not talk about it? We've had it come up a few times recently where a client has a use case where they want breakout rooms. They really want breakout rooms. Breakout rooms, when we're talking about Zoom, they don't exist in Zoom webinars. They exist only in Zoom meetings. So we've had instances where they start, hey Jordan, good to see you out there, where they start in a meeting or vice versa, start in a webinar, then split out into separate meetings or one or two other meetings that then use breakout rooms. So mixing and matching the use cases, it's absolutely doable. One tip I have for that, if you have a whole group transferring from one meeting to one webinar or vice versa, you can just put the link for that meeting or webinar into the chat. When people click on it, it should prompt them, do you want to leave the meeting? And that you're currently in, and it'll switch them over. So that's great if they're going from one meeting to one webinar. But we had another client with a use case where they were splitting, their larger, company-wide type event into 16 regional events. So in that case, we want to split them up into 16 different meetings. We don't want them going to one meeting with 16 breakout rooms. That didn't make a lot of sense. So yeah, working out those use cases, deciding which one's better, meeting or webinar. If you're looking for a really highly interactive, engaging experience with your participants, probably want to be in a meeting so that you can both see one another and interact more freely. And a session like this where you may have a larger audience, taking questions from the public, you don't necessarily need your audience to interact with one another. It's ideal for a webinar.
Do you want to, I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, but
let's rabbit hole. We've got time, 45 minutes.
One of the big things is, folks wanting to control what the audience is seeing, even when they want the meeting. Do you want to give a couple tips, or if anyone else has a couple tips, like say you are using Zoom meeting and you want to focus people's attention, what can you do to, get like as close to possible as like a webinar experience?
I'm gonna go.
Do you want me to?
I'm gonna leave a little room for somebody else to talk because I don't want to take over.
That sounded like a planted question, but I really just thought of that off the top of my head as like something that comes up often.
Well, I'd like to jump in here really quick,
go ahead.
But there are a couple different ways of doing it, but my personal favorite is spotlighting, of course. And Zoom just recently came out with an update where you can spotlight multiple people, which has made it really great when there's just a couple people on screen that you want to highlight. I really like that, but I'm sure.
And you would need everyone to have that update though.
Right. That's been a few months now. So
yeah,
I think...
so hopefully, but I'm still running into people who are like, yeah, I updated Zoom recently. And then if I dig a little further, I found out they mean like in March when the pandemic started, like they don't realize that there's been so many releases since then. So it's when there's a meeting with a small group of people, I think it's easier for a host to, and like ask everyone to update their Zoom. But if you're having a huge conference and you're not close to the people who are attending, but you're using a meeting, I think it's personally, I opt to not go for the features that require everyone to have that updated Zoom client, because they might be coming from a browser or have an older version or be, not tech savvy.
Lots of variables. And I just sprung a surprise on our good friend Adrian, surprise via the schedule privilege feature of Zoom. I forgot to think about that one. Just brings him right in as a co-host. So surprise Adrian, but Adrian does a lot of project management and project coordination with us here through our guide services, which we can add on to our production services. And so there are some differences between, planning for a webinar versus planning for a meeting that I think Adrian might be able to speak to a little.
Sure. So typically that kind of relates to what we were just talking about with the various functionality that comes from meeting webinar. Typically, we see that when audiences are going into the upper numbers, upwards of 1,000 people, we like to um, go into the webinar section. So for me as a project manager, project coordinator, a lot of what I do has to do with making sure that links, like join links to meetings and things are really important. Making sure that panelists have all of their links, making sure that attendees have their specific links. If there's going to be a registration involved, that's a whole different process. So it really just comes down to the individual needs of what the client is asking for. If there's a registration, there's a lot of ways that, you can register attendees to come and participate in a Zoom setting. So it basically it gets catered. There's usually more work for me. It feels more involved. And I don't want to say more work for me, but
Say
it
it.
just
You could
feels
say
more.
it.
It feels more involved on the webinar side, the bigger, because there are just a lot more, there's a lot more coordination and
Mhm.
negotiation that comes from meetings are usually really seamless. And we have some really great producers who are like top notch at what they do and don't um, really need me, in those moments. But when we're getting into webinar territory, that's when I feel like I tend to be a little bit more hands-on with like, especially with like collateral, if clients are
Mhm.
sharing materials, making sure that everything is where it needs to be. Do we have this? Do we have that? So typically webinar tends to be more
Yeah.
involved for
A
me.
big thing about that is like the collateral, and I think we kind of mentioned it before, that webinars, you've got more control over what your attendees are seeing. And generally that the desire there is for folks to have more of a polished experience there. So we've got, more videos that we need to collect because we need to play back these videos in this order. And the run of show is really tightly managed compared to a loosely programmed meeting where we need to talk about these important things. So yeah, a lot of variables in there, and I think that's a good place to kind of move on to our next topic.
Yeah, well, so I had asked you to talk a little bit about the differences between webinars and meetings, because then I wanted you to talk about OnZoom, which is where we are right now, how everyone got here today.
It worked.
And yeah, and I think some people here might be, interested in learning more about it or figuring out if they could possibly use it for work or other things, either
Yeah.
as a host or just a user. So maybe
Yeah, and
you can walk them through that.
I put together a couple slides real quick here, so nothing too in-depth, and then we'll do a little demo of the OnZoom website. I'll point out some key things that I find maybe interesting or really cool, and in some cases maybe a little bit limiting that you'd want to be aware of. So first off, what is OnZoom? It's just a website. It's on.zoom.us, so it's a subdomain of the zoom.us website. You can also use on.zoom.com if anybody ever asks you that question. But on.zoom.us, just a website, but more than that, it's a promotion and ticketing platform. So any Zoom user, which we'll see on the next slide, can create an event there. I also think it's a really great place, especially for fundraisers. So you can charge for your tickets, and Zoom is covering the cost of fundraising right now. I don't know if they'll always do that. I hope they do. I think that's a really good way to give back, but they're not taking fees on ticket sales for fundraisers. Check the details on that because I haven't looked into it really in depth, but I think that's really cool. And then further, more than that, I like it because it's a reliable place that people can send people, send your attendees, send people there over and over again to see what's coming up. Now, who can use it? This is where one of those limitations comes in. Who can host there with permission? You just have to apply at the top. So the first time you go to the OnZoom page, you'll see I think a register might say, or sign up to host, something like that. And you just go through an approval process, but you have to have a Zoom account, of course. And then here's the catch, attendees also have to have a Zoom account. So that can be considered a limitation. If your event is open to the public, you're trying to reach as many people as possible, you don't want to require that they have a Zoom account necessarily. But the benefit to that, on the flip side of that coin, is you can be more assured that everybody registering is a real person. So if this is an event that you're just putting up kind of as a paid event, a fundraiser, and so forth, making sure that people have a Zoom account, and the OnZoom platform in many places repeatedly tells you must update to the latest version of Zoom to use OnZoom. It's keeping everybody on the latest version, hopefully, as well. So it may seem like a limitation. In some cases, it can be a benefit, I think, as far as making sure the person on the other side is a real person that has a Zoom account. Yeah, sure, people could work around that, right? And then, yeah, those are the kind of key benefits, and that one big limitation, everybody has to have a Zoom account. So let me bring down that screen, and we're going to head over to the Zoom website, the OnZoom website, I should say. And let me turn on my trusty red dot. I have missed you, red dot. I haven't had a chance to use you in front of an audience for so long. Look at it, it's so cute. So this red dot, look, it's gonna blink when I click. And look, I was super happy to see this. Maybe OnZoom is just messing with us and they're like, oh, let's put their own event right in front of them. They're logged into the account. But maybe it's really there on the homepage. I'm gonna keep refreshing it all day. See if it stays there, because maybe just because of the timing coming up, and maybe that's like some smart algorithm working in there. Like, hey, we know this is coming up. So I'll be keeping my eye on this. It's in beta. That means it's not, I don't know what that means to Zoom. Anybody can ask for it. So once you get here, you'll be prompted. So it's an open beta. Anybody can apply at the top. So up top here, I have the options to create and I can manage. So if I click to manage, I can dig into the event and we'll see the event that I'm in right now. So I need to be careful. I don't need to show everybody, attendee information and who's registered and such. But if I go through the create process, I just want to point out some key things through this. We'll give the event a name. It'll be a super cool webinar. And we can include a description. This is all, very familiar stuff to setting up a webinar. And this will be a webinar available in my Zoom account, like any of my other scheduled webinars, but I'm scheduling it through the OnZoom platform. So let's just put some information in there. They have some categories. I don't know. See, education, I can go for. I feel like we're education, but I don't feel like we're education and family. So maybe these will come out. Maybe there'll be, well, I guess there is a way that you can add your own tags. So maybe some culture will develop over the tagging system there. That could be cool. And now you need to decide whether it's public, excluded from the directory, and search. So only people that have the link can go straight there and register, or you can make it private where you have to add people to the session in order for them to receive invites. So again, it's a ticketing system. So if I make it public, that like this event, it may show up on the OnZoom homepage there. Anybody can sign up. So that's great. Pretty simple use case there, open to the public. Excluded from the directory, so still lets me use this like a public event. It's just, I can exclusively promote it to people They need the link to find it. You can do that with YouTube videos, for instance. It's, available on YouTube, searchable, or it's not. It's a private link.
Josh,
And
does
then,
it
yeah,
cost anything to host your Zoom meeting on Zoom or your webinar on Zoom?
only if you're charging something. So yeah, we'll get to that in just a sec. I think that's on the next, or it's the third step when we get to tickets. We'll demo that real quick. And then lastly, private event, of course, again, this is really important. You load up the information. So you say who can come. There's no need for them to go to a link or anything. They get their invite. You're inviting them. So we'll just make, well, let's make this one excluded from directory. I don't want people to find this test if I ever publish it. Is this a one-time event or a series? I do want to, one-time event, I think we all understand. Series, let's go through that because there's some stuff there. Is this daily, weekly, monthly? Well, for this event, we made it a monthly series and the one that you're in right now. And what's today? Is today the 26th? Let's just recreate it. And in this case, I want to make it the last Friday of every month. That's what I did for the session that we're in right now. So simple flexibility. Of course, I can have a much tighter schedule than that. And how many do I want to have? Well, I figured we didn't want one in December, so I'm going to put one out for 10 months, 10 different events. February, last one's in November. Nice and simple once again. So here's where it comes to charging or accepting donations. If this is a fundraiser, we can switch this on. Then we need to choose an organization to continue creating a fundraiser for the event. Okay, so we can search through a list of available nonprofits, or we can request for a nonprofit to be added. So, this just gives me a warm and fuzzy feeling that they're making this so accessible and they're using, I'm not a huge, I'm not incredibly knowledgeable about the nonprofit sector, but it looks like they've partnered with a fairly reputable organization. They've got the terms, privacy policy all right there. Shirsi, let me ask your thoughts on this, just because I know you've maybe had some experience with nonprofits.
I absolutely love this. That's one of the challenges that they've had is different. A lot of nonprofits are understaffed and underfunded in some ways. So these are excellent ways. I love how Zoom's done this. Amazon did something similar with their smart shopping. But I haven't dealt with Pledgeling, but I know GuideStar is a pretty big one that it's like the Better Business Bureau of nonprofits and a really great search engine there. This is perfect. I love what they're doing because it seems like it's really user friendly and any nonprofit can just sign up right away. So I'm excited about this.
Yeah, I'm tempted to start searching for nonprofits, but I don't want to give away too much of my politics here. So I'm just going to switch off the fundraiser. I was just working with one of our favorite nonprofits earlier today. I wonder if they're in there. Event options. So this is a big distinguisher again, and it's not my favorite wording. Zoom, if you're listening, let's fix this. Let's just put webinar and meeting in parentheses next to one of these, okay? Because this first one, only hosts, alternative hosts, and invited panelists can turn on their audio and video. Well, then the word panelist, that's a webinar, right? Obviously, okay. So maybe not so obvious. So they do put the little, question marks there and stuff. I don't get that, that doesn't simplify the language to me at all. So, and then the second one, all attendees and alternative hosts. So they're bringing out the alternative host functionality here, which also tends to get people a little mixed up sometimes. So maybe I'll explain alternative host versus co-host in a moment. Attendees and alternative hosts can turn on their audio and video. So that's a meeting. Everybody can participate, like we said earlier, meeting versus webinar. So could have hit the nail on the head a little harder there with the distinguishing between meeting and webinar. But notice that your different settings will unfold below. And I like that you can, if it's a meeting, you can say, okay, attendees, they can only come through and join in 15 minutes before the event starts. It seems like a good idea.
Do we
'Cause-
know, Josh,
Uh-huh.
like, so we have to use our Zoom account to
Right.
set up it in here. So it's almost like we're choosing our settings here, but then we also have our settings in our Zoom license.
We'll get there in
Okay,
just a sec.
sorry.
Yeah, that's one thing I was really curious about, and it's an important thing to understand. Attendees, so just on this one, we always find those attendees that just join in as soon as they see the reminder or whatever. They're there 30, 45 minutes ahead of time. So I like that they're kind of alleviating that. Of course, switch on your waiting room, your key features. Event security, we don't need to unpack all of this. Just checking the time, we're doing okay. And now I want to move on to step 2. Keep creating my series. Oh, I missed something. It won't let me save and continue. Oh, maybe I have to select. Well, I'm going to other. Yep. So you have to select a category. Interesting. Okay, and now you want to give it a little branding, upload your image. So hopefully, oh, there's mostly branding in there. Let's just grab that real quick. Don't look at the rest. I can put in a YouTube link here. So if there are some videos or a video I want to link, or maybe a channel, I think a video would work best. I haven't had a chance to test this out, but just link to a video, maybe a commercial promotion. And then you've got your about. So this creates your event profile page. And then this is just going to take the profile information. This is the email address associated with the account being used. So I could change that to our events email address or our info email address. Just these are things I've typed. Now you have all of our info. And let's move on to the third step, which is the ticketing. So here's the next kind of thing you want to know. We have the option for up to 299 tickets if it's a meeting. And then this particular account has capacity 100 for webinars. That's fine for my account. And we have, other licenses we can move around to different levels as needed. But now I need to decide if this is a free or paid event. I can't click paid because I haven't attached my payment information yet. We don't have a need to set that up, so I don't want to set that up just to prevent any weird stuff from happening. Compliance and all. Free event, so we'll stay there. Paid, of course, I've got to have my PayPal account linked, and through your account management, you can do so. Up at the top right. What did I learn that kind of stood out to me? So there's alternative host tickets. Now these people, just like alternative host, as always, they have to be members of your Zoom account. Oh, I thought it would pre-populate. Oh my gosh, now I have to type in front of people. I usually type well, I think. Okay. Okay, so now that I've added Ryan there and I go back to edit, I want to point out that it says invitation not sent, because I actually haven't finished scheduling this event. It hasn't sent it out because it won't do so until I publish. So that's one key thing. And you can add a message in there if you want to. And so Ryan's going to get a special invite now. Now, alternative hosts have to be members of your same Zoom account, have to have a pro license, do not have to have a webinar license if you're using a webinar. Entire series, quantity of tickets. So how many tickets do I want to make that are for the whole series? This kind of threw me at first, I didn't get it. So let's make 25 of them available for the whole series. And I'll save, and yeah, make sure you know this stuff. And now I have the option of creating drop-in tickets. So drop-in tickets, those are like your one-time use tickets. So if I create 75 drop-in tickets, took me a minute to figure this out. I could have used a little bit more guidance. Just looking at you, Zoom. Love you guys, miss you. So this one, now I have 75 drop-in tickets per each event in the series. So 75 people can just drop into any one, but I've allowed people to register for the entire series for only 25 tickets. Do I need to do that for this series use case? I guess. You have to have some at least available for the entire series for the drop-in option to pop up, if I recall. We can go back and watch the recording to see if I'm right. And here's a message for the thank you. Now at this point, I can save the event and I can publish the event. Once I publish the event, it has a profile page. We can navigate through it. So let me go back through all events. I didn't save it. Let's check out this one, also on the top page. Fight Parkinson's with online exercise. Sounds good to me. And looks like it's, similar to ours. Entire series are drop-in. So $10 per class to benefit, I assume, some type of Parkinson's fundraiser. Cool. Very good. Everybody needs to be a little more healthy, right? Or not needs, I shouldn't say that, could. And notice they put up a few profile images so I can check out our hostess, it appears, and even put up a video. So they put up their YouTube video, so it shows up in their little scroll jog thing. I like that. I can share it really easily. I can mark it as one of my favorites. Let's give Plexus Physical Therapy a big favorite.
So Josh, I have a question about this.
Uh-huh.
Do you need a webinar account in order to make a webinar event for OnZoom?
Yes, yeah. I should do some more testing on that. I'd assume it'd gray out the option for webinar and force you to creating a meeting. But I imagine they'd also push you through a buy flow to purchase a webinar license very quickly as well. I don't discount the fact that this also is Zoom saying like, hey, come on through, create your Zoom account. Because it does, if somebody doesn't have a Zoom account and they want to register here, they have to create a Zoom account. Even if it's a free account, Zoom's like one more account. So taking a look at ours, we did similarly have the entire series or drop in. There's just no fee. We're in that other category. I didn't know quite where to place us. We'll figure all that stuff out. So just one image, no tile option to rotate the image in this case. What other key learnings? I don't want to take you into manage and the statistics because then I'm showing you about the event that you're in right now, but there are some charts and graphs and stuff that I think are really cool in there that, that at a glance information. And this covers a lot of bases, things that people have been asking about for years that I've been responding to. Where can I post my events? Where's there a web page that I can share my events? And how do I easily charge for my events? And just really kind of covers a lot of that with some key limitations.
So the question came in, I'm going to kind of summarize it, but why would you use OnZoom instead of just a regular webinar or meeting? Especially where it's like when it's a private event, I know, that's it kind of came to mind. Like, why wouldn't I just use my own account and just make a thing?
Right.
I don't want people to find it.
Right, exactly. I think the big thing, fundraiser and people charging for events, so that's going to draw people to it. A lot of people are using Eventbrite, for instance, and they'll use an integration to Zoom that is really tight and it works really well. And so I wouldn't, say there's no need for that anymore because there's still going to be people doing those really large events at scale. I am talking to our yoga instructor. We have a yoga instructor, Lori, come in every week with us, and we just love her and we want her to be successful with her program. So I think OnZoom is a good place for her. We just need to figure out, maybe she does like a daily morning meditation, or maybe she does, an afternoon stretch or something, just something that she can put up daily, once a week, something like that. That would just be there and hopefully bring more people to her practice, I think, in that way. So great for ongoing events. You can kind of use it as your bulletin board. Every time somebody asks, how do I get involved in your class? You have that one link that you send them, which is either to your OnZoom profile page so they can look at everything you're offering there, or just the one event profile so they register and they're done there. So yeah, I think there's a lot of good benefit to it for certain groups. It's certainly not for everybody.
I want, we have like 10 minutes or 5 minutes left in our session. And I just wanted to open it up for anyone who hasn't asked a question yet. It doesn't even have to be about anything we've talked about. If you just want some free advice, now is your chance.
5 minutes of free advice. Let's
go. So if you're just like stuck on a thing that keeps happening, or your PowerPoint, you can't figure out how to, get it into presentation mode.
Should we do PowerPoint next time? Raise your hand if we should just spend next time talking about PowerPoint. Yeah. Okay. Oh, I see hands up. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm gonna, Jordan, I'm gonna allow you to talk. You'll just need to unmute yourself and then.
Oh, I can't wait to hear Jordan's voice.
Hi, everyone.
Ah, there it is. Isn't it beautiful? What's up, Jordan? How you been?
Hey guys, I'm good. So great to see you. I'm so glad you guys are doing this series. Thanks for inviting me through way of email list. I appreciate it. You said PowerPoint, and now you sparked this thing in my brain that I just kind of keep tucking it away as an annoyance, but I might as well say it out loud. When you're screen sharing and PowerPoint, is on a slideshow, you click off to, update the time in the chat or what have you, and your PowerPoint slideshow stops.
Right.
Is there anything that I can do? Am I just driving myself
mode.
Crazy? Kiosk mode.
So PowerPoint has a kiosk mode function. Let's see. Okay. Can I pull this PowerPoint? It sounds like our next topic just wrote itself. So let me go into screen sharing, and I want to go into slideshow mode. And I want to go into setup slideshow.
Gotcha.
Okay, so PowerPoint wants to be the most forward application on the computer. As soon as you click away from it, it's like, oh, I'm not in use anymore. Lazy. But if you put it in kiosk mode, full screen, this is a mode that is meant to let a PowerPoint run on a display for a while. Like there's nobody driving the slides. It's just automatically timed. And you walk into a company, they've got a display and some rotating slides there, probably using kiosk mode. It's just on a loop. And so that means I can multitask on my computer. I can actually do something else without that being interrupted, so that it'll keep going. So yeah, that one, just a random one. Slideshow tab, setup slideshow, and kiosk mode. I think, Ryan, weren't you just doing that yesterday? Or no, just as we were starting this session.
You were like,
so Ryan had 2 rotating slides, and I was like, kiosk mode, and yep. So it comes up every once in a while.
I actually didn't use kiosk mode. I used a different trick that I used, but I'll save that for next time.
Ooh, teaser, come back. All right,
awesome.
Cool.
Thank you,
Jordan,
guys so
I hope
much.
Yeah. If you need to chat, if you need to click to anything else. And then another thing with that, of course, if you can, just bring in a second computer. If I'm sharing screen in a client webinar, I typically do it from a second computer unless it's a real brief one. And I'll just share remote control from that computer so that I can reach over and hit the space bar to move a slide if I need to.
Right on.
All right, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great seeing you guys. Great talking to you. And I'm looking forward to the next one. I'll be here.
Yeah, cool. Sounds
awesome.
Good. You know where to find us. It's
yes, indeed.
on.zoom.us. But here, one point I forgot to make earlier, which I meant to go over to the Zoom website once it's created, because the webinar will show up there. But it shows up without the registration link or the link to join. That's only accessible. The only path they have to register is through the OnZoom platform. You can't backdoor somebody, which is probably to their preference. Anyway, on that note, Ryan.
Anyone else have a live question they want to ask, or you can type it in. I've answered most of the typed in ones, but if anyone wants to hear their voice on.
I'm just, you know what, it's so weird. We've been doing this for a year now officially as the WebiNerd LLC, and this is our first webinar that we've hosted for our company. And it feels right. So thank you, everybody. Actually, I think it really just needed a snappy title, and then Reboot and Rejoin was born. So if you don't get what that means, give us a holler. We'll explain it to you. I think it's pretty clear. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything brand new out there. Check some of those resources and links in the chat. Reach out to us if we can help you. Find us on social. We're happy to help. You know what, Ryan, do you want to put the rotators back on?
Yeah, give me a second. I wasn't ready.
Oh, surprise. Everything was so perfect until just then.
I should try to put it in kiosk mode. That's what I should do.
Yeah, you could have just left it there the whole time.
I know.
All right. Well, this was fun. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to our team for coming together. Adrian, thanks for being a good sport and, like, you know, answering some questions off the cuff when you just thought you were attendee mode today. But I still like you having schedule privilege. I need that in my life. Okay. I hear some jazz coming in. That's my, like, closing music. It's like, ooh. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us today. I'm going to mute and shut off my video, and let's have some jazz on the way out. Take a breath, stretch. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great weekend.